Imagine being 20 years old, standing on a clay court in Mallorca, Spain, and realizing that the man watching your footwork, correcting your slide, and reshaping how you think about red dirt is Toni Nadal. The same Toni Nadal who spent over a decade building Rafael Nadal into the most dominant clay court force the sport has ever produced. That is not a training camp. That is a changing of the game, and Alex Eala is right in the middle of it. She said it herself, with that kind of raw honesty you cannot fake. If someone had told her this was coming years ago, she would have completely lost her mind. She would not have believed it. And honestly, neither would most of us who have been watching her rise from the outside. So let us talk about what is actually happening here, because the noise around the story has gotten loud, and most of it is pointed in the wrong direction. There are thumbnails everywhere right now claiming Aryna Sabalenka is furious, threatened, rattled by a 20-year-old Filipina training at the Rafa Nadal Academy. And look, drama sells. But the real story here is so much more interesting than a rivalry that has not actually been confirmed by a single verified quote. What is real is this. A young woman from the Philippines just walked into the most prestigious clay court environment in tennis history, did the work, and then went straight into competition to prove it was not just for show. That is the story worth telling. Eala's connection to the Rafa Nadal Academy is not new. She has been part of that world for years, growing up inside a system that treats clay not as one surface among many, but as the truest test of who a tennis player really is. But this recent block in Mallorca in early April 2026 was different. This was not a young prospect finding her footing. This was a player with real ranking points, real match experience on big stages, and a very specific problem to solve before Roland Garros. And Toni Nadal was there to help her solve it. His role was not a full-time takeover of her coaching setup. It was surgical, targeted, the kind of intervention that an experienced eye delivers when a player already has a foundation but needs someone to locate the cracks. Movement patterns, sliding mechanics, how to absorb pace on a slow surface and redirect it with purpose, how to extend a rally 1 or 2 balls longer than your opponent expects and make them feel that pressure before anything is actually broken. These are the details that separate clay survivors from clay threats, and Eala was there absorbing every single one of them. Now here is why that matters more than it might look on paper. Eala came into 2026 on the back of a hardcourt surge that put her on the global tennis map in a way that very few players from Southeast Asia have ever managed. She showed she could compete on fast surfaces, she showed she could handle big moments, and she showed the kind of baseline ball striking that makes opponents genuinely uncomfortable. But clay is a different conversation entirely. Clay slows everything down. It exposes footwork that looked fine at speed. It punishes players who rely too heavily on power without positioning. It demands patience, and patience is something you cannot fake against the best players in the world. So walking into the clay swing with Toni Nadal's fingerprints on her movement was not just a confidence boost. It was a strategic decision, and the results started showing up almost immediately. On April 7th in Linz, Eala opened her clay season against Julia Grabher and won 6-4, 6-3. Clean scoreline, straight sets, controlled from start to finish. That might sound routine, but opening clay matches with that kind of authority after dedicated court-specific preparation tells you the sessions in Mallorca translated into something real. A few days later came Aryna Sabalenka, then Ostapenko, and the Ostapenko match was the one that people who really pay attention to tennis needed to watch closely. Ostapenko did get through, winning 6-4, 7-5, but the way Eala competed inside that match told a different story from the scoreboard. The rallies were longer than they used to be. The slides looked more composed. The moments where Eala might have handed a point away by playing too safe or rushing the transition were replaced with something that looked a lot like clay court discipline. That is not nothing. That is progress in real time, visible on a live court against a Grand Slam champion who knows exactly how to exploit clay weaknesses. Greg Rosetsky put it about as directly as anyone has. He said that being at the academy with Rafa on clay means Eala knows what to do now, and that it is going to be harder for people to hit through her. Think about what that actually means coming from a former top 10 player and someone who has analyzed the sport at the highest level for years. He is not talking about inspiration. He is talking about a tactical shift. When it becomes harder to hit through a player on clay, rallies stop ending on the opponent's terms. Points that used to finish in 4 or 5 balls start going to 7 or 8, and those extra balls are exactly where elite matches get decided. Momentum does not swing on winners alone. It swings on the moments where one player refuses to crack when the other one assumed they would. And Eala is being trained to be that player on
clay.
Now, let us address the Sabalenka conversation properly, because it deserves more than a thumbnail treatment. Aryna Sabalenka is the world #1. She earned that position through relentless work, through mental toughness that has been tested and proven across multiple Grand Slam runs, and through a game that is built to dismantle opponents on any surface. She is not a paper champion. She is the real thing. But that is precisely why Eala's development lands with so much weight. Because she is not sharpening her clay game against a weak field or targeting a moment when the top of the tour is vulnerable. She is doing this work while Sabalenka and Swiatek and Goff and the whole established order are still standing right there at the front of the draw. That is what the internet is really reacting to, even if it cannot quite articulate it without reaching for a fake feud. There is no confirmed Sabalenka quote. No press conference explosion, no social media moment. What there is a symbolic collision between the established order and a 20-year-old who just upgraded her toolkit right before the surface that decides legacies. That collision is real even without the drama, and it is worth sitting with. The human moment inside all of this, though, the one that keeps pulling you back, is what Eala actually said about working with Toni Nadal. She called it fantastic. She said she felt truly privileged. She talked about how blessed her team felt to have access to that knowledge. And then came the line that hit differently than everything else. If you had told me this years ago, I would have completely lost my mind. I wouldn't have believed you. That is not a player managing a press moment carefully. That is someone genuinely reckoning with how far she has come and how steep the path still is in front of her. There is something in that honesty that connects to every fan who saw something in Eala before the rankings caught up, before the broader tennis world started paying attention, before the headlines arrived. Filipino fans know this feeling. Southeast Asian fans know this feeling. You watch someone carry your flag into rooms where that flag has rarely been seen, and you want so badly for the talent to be real, for the belief to be justified, for the story to go somewhere it has never gone before. And right now the story is going to Mallorca and Linz and Stuttgart and soon Madrid and Rome and Paris. Which brings us to Stuttgart because this story needs to be told honestly, or it means nothing. On April 14th, Leylah Fernandez beat Eala 6-1, 6-4. 2 early clay exits in a row, and that result was not soft. It was a reminder that Toni Nadal's guidance is not a cheat code. Clay instincts built over years cannot be downloaded in a training block, and professional tennis at this level forgives nothing. The scoreboard told the truth, and the truth was uncomfortable. But here is what matters just as much as the result. Eala did not disappear. She did not withdraw from the clay swing, did not retreat to a surface where she already feels comfortable, did not let 2 difficult results become a narrative about a player who tried something and learned she did not belong there. The clay swing keeps moving. Madrid is next. Rome follows. And then Roland Garros arrives in late May, carrying with it all the weight and all the possibility that this entire preparation block has been pointing toward. That is where the character of a competitor gets revealed. Not in the weeks where everything works, but in the weeks where the surface pushes back hard and you keep showing up anyway. And Eala is showing up. The significance of what she is doing extends beyond one player's season and one surface's results. For years, conversations about Asian players breaking through in tennis have leaned toward faster courts, toward first-strike tennis, toward styles built for hard surfaces where athleticism and power can compensate for clay-specific gaps. Eala is pushing directly against that ceiling. She is saying, with her choices and her work and her willingness to put herself in uncomfortable rooms and learn, that a Filipina can go to Roland Garros not just to compete but to genuinely threaten. That is representation with technical substance behind it. That is not a marketing campaign or a feel-good story built for social media. That is a player changing her actual game in preparation for the most demanding clay examination in the sport. So here is where things stand as the clay swing builds toward its peak. Eala has done the Mallorca sessions. She has had the Toni Nadal input. She has gotten real clay match experience at Linz and Stuttgart with a win, a competitive loss to Ostapenko, and a difficult exit against Fernandez. The pattern is not linear, and it was never going to be. Real development in professional tennis never looks clean from the outside. It looks like a 6-4, 6-3 win one week and a 6-1, 6-4 loss the next. And the question is never whether the result was perfect, but whether the player is still moving in the right direction. By every honest measure, Eala is. The players who will be looking at the Roland Garros draw in a few weeks know what has happened in Mallorca. They have seen the Linz result. They have seen the fight inside the Ostapenko match, even if the scoreline did not go Eala's way. And the ones who study the tour carefully understand that a 20-year-old with that kind of preparation, that kind of mentorship, and that kind of emotional investment in getting better on clay is exactly the kind of player you do not want appearing in your section of the bracket. Rosetsky's words keep echoing. It is going to be harder to hit through her. When that is the scouting report starting to attach itself to your name before a Grand Slam, something real is happening. The question now is not whether Eala belongs in this conversation. She is already in it. The question is how far she takes it and whether the statement gets made in Madrid or Rome, or whether she is saving the full version of herself for the Parisian clay when the whole tennis world is watching. One thing is certain. The girl who would have completely lost her mind if someone told her this was coming? She is ready to make the people who doubted her lose theirs instead.